Okay, guys. So let's start talking a little bit about regressions. Actually, it makes me feel really good because you guys are already getting it. And after 3.5 days, you guys are doing something more sophisticated, more intense, and more eloquently than I've seen people doing things after 30 days of solid NLP, hypnosis, and related trainings. So it makes me feel really good. So regressions. Remember, when we're talking about the memory, the field of memory, there are basically 3 experiences that hypnosis allows you to create. Hyper-amnesia, which is a heightened recall of something. There's a revivification, where you actually have the experience again, but you're still aware that you're an adult having the experience, you're just reliving it, although there's that dual awareness. And then there's a regression, and a true regression, you have no awareness that you're in a different room, in a different body, etc. Okay? A funny story about regression. Milton Erickson loved to play with the regression, and so he did this thing like he have his garage set up to do little mini seminars with people. Usually about 10 or so people would get in there, and he was actually a practical joker, so he loved to trick people into trance and do things. So one day, these guys come rolling in, and they have the pens and paper all laid out with little pencils on these little school-type desks. And Erickson gets wheeled in, and apparently Erickson had this really intense kind of focus. So you could literally feel it when he was getting into this thing. And it was his way of overcoming pain and all the other things that were a side effect of the condition he had. And so people would literally feel it. They could feel like the hairs on the back of their neck standing up when he was doing this. So Erickson would be at the front, and typically he would spend 20 minutes hallucinating his little bearskin rug floating in the air. That must be a pretty cool experience. And then he'd kind of look up, and he'd look at the class, and he'd say to all the people there, "All right, I want you to write your name on the top right-hand corner. And then write the numbers 1 through 10 on the left margin." And he'd be going on with a massive series of instructions. Everyone's following this. By the end of this, they'd be totally regressed to 4 or 5 years old. They're back in school doing a test. You'd have, I haven't seen the video, but I've been told by someone who was actually there and took the video. You can actually see some, shall we say, pretty big names in the hypnosis world right now, crawling under someone's desk, looking over the shoulder, trying to cheat, get their answers, come back, write things down. And at one point, there's one, I can't remember who was doing this with, but one of these guys has a mustache, so he's he's talking about what he's doing, he's drawing, he's like, "Oh, it's such a pretty picture, this is great." And then looks at him and goes, "What's that?" And he goes, "What? On your lip? What's that?" Because he's got a mustache, right? So the guy goes, "It's hair." And this little kid goes, "That's what they do, right?" He goes, "What's a little boy like you doing with his hair on his lip?" And here's this adult who's regressed to 5 years old, and he's thinking, and he's thinking, and he's thinking, and he looks up, "Oh, I know. It's from when I was older." Great. So true regression, you're actually at that age, you're actually having the experience. Now, many people tell you that you need a true regression to do regression therapy or regression work. In my experience, that's not the case. I think most people, when they do any kind of regression work, will end up having a strong form of revivification. Now, the line between hyper-amnesia, a revivification, and regression, this is a sliding scale. This is not this is a delineated point, and now we have only memory, now we only have a revivification, now we only have a regression. It's a sliding scale, right? So the more hyper-amnesia gets turned up, it starts falling into a revivification. When you turn the heat up on a revivification, it starts becoming a regression. Do you see how that works? And typically, when you're doing work or regression work with people, they will be hovering between a revivification and a true regression. And that's okay. Actually, that's a pretty good place to have them. And I just want you to know this because it took me actually the best part of 7 years to figure out what people are talking about when they say revivification, regression. You want one but not the other, because there's a lot of shall we say, crosstalk that goes on about people, and I'm not sure a lot of hypnotists really use these terms consistently. If you actually watch what they're doing rather than what they tell you to do, you'll notice that the effective hypnotists, the ones I've seen anyway, do their work somewhere in that range there, right? So the reason I'm saying this is just so you guys can feel good that if you get someone into that range, That's the way you do the work. You don't have to get people talking about how they used to be older. You don't have to get people... The place you don't want people is in hyper-amnesia, where they can tell you vividly about an event, but have no experience of it, right? Because that's the equivalent of... if you remember our thing here, right? That's the equivalent of them being here, and they can't get in. So you want them to be in here somewhere, so that you can move your way out. Does that make sense? So, we're going to spend some time playing with this idea of experiences and how you can shift attention to experiences and how that can create things inside the mind that allow you to get a kind of regression or a vivid revivification so you can do the work that we've come here to do. Will that be of interest to you? So let's start with an exercise. The first thing to do is find a partner. You're going to spend like 2 minutes apiece, maybe 3 minutes apiece, so it's a real quick piece. I'm going to encourage you to do the exercise and then we'll come right back again. I know you're going to be wanting to chat about it and how cool the seminar is and all that other stuff, but I'm going to really ask you to stay on time for this because there's about 4 or 5 little exercises that build on each other I want to do in rapid succession, and I need you guys to go and come back quickly to be able to do that. Is that okay with you? Okay. So the first exercise is pretty straightforward. You're going to induce trance as quickly as possible. I recommend you use either an instant induction or the 10-second hypnotist just to get some form of trance. Trance, if you want to do your boilerplates one, and that's actually a pretty good thing to get into habit of. Right? That's a very good habit to get into. Once they're in trance, I'm going to ask you to just ask them to find a sensation in their body. When they find a sensation, and be loose about it, it can be a physical sensation, it could be an emotional sensation, it could be a touch of some sort. Just direct their attention back onto that using the echo effect and get them to keep focusing on that and notice what happens. Right? I mean, this is a no-brainer at this stage, right? So this is the point where your mind actually gets a chance to catch up. Everyone happy with this? Just spend a minute or two with that, switch around, and as soon as you're done, come back, and that'll be my cue that we can add the next bit to this exercise.